Pokemon is going to space again.
Butterfree,
Yo, whoa, what is going on YouTube? It's your boy Dan, aka Drive. We're bringing you guys a brand new video today, and today we are diving into a crazy brand new rumor that just surfaced on Reddit of all places, and it does talk about those Diamond and Pearl potential remakes. I've been on the hype train for a while, and I do believe it is coming for next year, but this is a pretty interesting rumor. It actually is an individual who posted a bunch of stuff and they even commented and responded to people. There's gonna be all sorts of good stuff. So if you guys are excited, hit that like button down below and make sure you guys subscribe to the channel if you're new. YouTube tells me about 50% of you guys are actually not subscribed. So let's change that right now. And we're gonna dive into these Diamond and Pearl remake rumors. Let's do it. Before we jump into today's video, I wanna thank my friends at Manji for sponsoring today. For those who don't know, the Manji Command Case is the premier Nintendo Switch case on the market. It has a ton of different features that'll make Nintendo even jealous. They've got these incredible straps in the back that allow you to hold your Nintendo Switch while laying down and also provide a lot of comfort through playability. The Manji Command Shell has an incredible kickstand that allows you to actually get the perfect viewing angle in your Nintendo Switch. It also comes with a 90-degree charging cable that allows you to charge your Nintendo Switch in tabletop mode. And furthermore, the Joy-Cons have a protective shell that is way more comfortable than the regular Joy-Con itself and has that awesome strap on the back for a better gaming experience overall. This case is incredible, but I want to see how it holds up to a drop test. See you later, Nintendo Switch. I'll be real, I dropped this thing like 10 times to make this video, and as you can see, it's still in perfect condition. The best part is, for the Black Friday sale, you guys can use code ADRIVE10 at ManjiStore.com on the Manji Command Shell or the Manji Command Case. Don't wait until your Switch is already broken, pick up a Manji Command Shell right now and level up your gaming experience. How sick is that Nintendo Switch case? Pretty awesome stuff. Make sure you grab it in the description below. Now we are taking a look at this Diamond and Pearl rumor and a couple other things. The first thing I want to talk about though is that fact that Pokemon Japan actually announced they're doing a 2021 Space Sunrise Live. I didn't want to make a dedicated video about this because we really don't know a ton about it, but basically what's going down is the Pokemon Company International, partnering with Coca-Cola and some others, are going to showcase the first sunrise of 2021 from the International Space Station on December 31st. Great way to end 2020 and open the door to 2021, the 25-year anniversary of the Pokemon franchise, which again, I've been talking extensively about, and I'm starting the hype train now because I do believe that next year is going to just be a crazy year. But one of the interesting things is the name of this event is called the Space Sunrise Live, and when we think of Diamond and Pearl, the main themes of those games are space and time, and this says space and sunrise, which has to do with time, and perhaps that might be a hint towards something, or it's just a coincidence. But Pokemon, listen, they don't do everything, they don't do anything without thinking through it first, right? They definitely have these plans in place. I'm not saying we should jump to this and be like, oh my god, there's a Space Sunrise event that they're doing, that means Diamond Pearl remakes confirmed, but I'm just saying it certainly points in that direction. Let's just be real here. You can't deny that there could be some connection here. All right, enough of that. Let's take a look at this new rumor that just came up on Reddit as of about 12 hours ago of me making this video. It says, not sure if I'm supposed to post this here, but 4chan has been flagged and is now consistently being looked at by several Nintendo employees for leaks and other sites which use sketchy. Reddit leaks don't happen often, so I think I should be safe. So I'm gonna address this, and I'm gonna address this as I normally would from a skeptic perspective, but also from a fan perspective and everything in between. And I did have a couple people actually send me this, so that's why we're taking a look here. So first things first, I mean, anytime you posting leaks on the internet, you run the risk of losing your job if it's a real leak, right? I mean, that could always happen because, you know, you could be tracked down. There's only so many people in so many different departments who have access to this kind of information. So he says, you could call me Kaizen. I work for an advertising team for Game Freak. So he says that they work for the advertising team for Game Freak. Now, I'll be real, this part right here to me is a bit of a red flag because I don't know if Game Freak has an advertising team. Most of the time, companies like Game Freak, Nintendo, Pokemon, they would hire out their marketing teams, right? They may have people who work for marketing internally, but for them to have an advertising specific team, someone creating ads, you usually outsource that stuff. And I actually worked in the advertising industry, for those who don't know, before I was a content creator. So it may be different in Japan, I don't know, but my guess would be that for the advertising perspective, Nintendo and Pokemon would have their own teams that they work with that deal with that kind of stuff. But I don't know, maybe this person works for a third party, maybe there is advertising teams within Game Freak, I really don't know, but I just wanted to point that out because I do think that's worth mentioning. But there's some really good substance here that seems like it could be legit, and a lot of people are thinking that there's a chance. Again, this is a rumor, so we take it with a grain of salt. We are presented with the info, we're tasked to present to the public, which is what they would do, right? They would get the info, and now they have to figure out how to present the trailers. We have most of the trailers done, so I'm gonna give some info. Now, this might be a little early to have trailers done, but we'll see. Pokemon 2021 are called Pokemon Flowing Diamond and Expanding Pearl. And I think the names of this is because time flows and space expands, I guess. Pokemon 2021 will be revealed on April 28th in a direct, but teased on February 27th on Pokemon Day. And I believe that the timeline makes a lot of sense. Pokemon Flowing Diamond and Expanding Pearl are less of remakes and more of like remasters, as they take Pokemon Platinum's story and concept and expand upon it. They change characters, the Pokedex, the story, and even add things like Sinonian forms for Pokemon like Trapinch, Arcanine, and they even add Dynamax. Now this to me actually makes a lot of sense. Pokemon has been kind of turning up the dial a little bit, and while some people were not super stoked about the release of Sword and Shield, overall the game was received very well, and I think from a fan perspective, forms of Pokemon are a massive hit. People love seeing forms, and the Galarian forms, the Alola forms, that's something that I have a hard time seeing they take out of the game. It's a really easy way for them to reimagine old Pokemon in new ways. Fans love it. Merchandising is all over the place. They kill it with merchandising, and this is a really good opportunity. Sinonian forms for Trapinch and Arcanine would be nuts, dude. Seeing the Flygon line as a Sinonian form, seeing the Arcanine as a Sinonian form, a lot of potential there. The post-game is centered around some quests with Peony to uncover the legendary and mythical Pokemon that live in Sinnoh. A post-game story with Cynthia and Looker focused on Eternatus and explaining Dynamax and Sinnoh. And finally, the Battle Frontier, which as a kid was one of my most favorite features that I've ever used. This is interesting stuff. It talks about Peony being tied back in, which I find very interesting because the Crown Tundra, the snowy region part of Galar, of course, what is Sinnoh? The snowy region of the Pokemon world, right? That's what Sinnoh is known for, is their snow-covered mountaintops, right? So seeing Peony getting tied in there, I believe it. And while I want Megas to return, and I actually made a video about this the other day, I believe it's more likely that Dynamax is in the Sinnoh region from a game design perspective than Megas, but I want Megas to return more. So this could make a lot of sense. I saw full camera control and improved graphics in the gameplay we were given. This is saying free roam gameplay. And it says the release date is November 2021, but there's no exact date because of COVID and complications it could bring. So that all lines up. Everything here sits pretty well with me, minus some of the backstory of this person, Kaizen, and some of the stuff behind them. But who knows? I mean, I know if I was leaking stuff on the internet, I wouldn't tell exactly where I got the info from, but that's just me. So let's see what else, because he actually went on to respond to some people too. Will Megas return? They were at some point considered. The reason they won't be returning is the competitive scene with Dynamax and Mega would be chaotic. I don't know, but I've heard about a Mega Capabraze for Generation 9. Capabraze being a potential fire starter. I hear random names here and there, and I've heard Mega Evolution is planned for Gen 9, but I won't find out until next year or so. I don't know. I have a hard time believing that someone would know what's going on for Gen 9 who works for advertising, but nevertheless, this is saying that there's not going to be any Megas. Here we go. Asking about contests, underground, etc. Contests are basically ORAS, but a bit better in the style of Platinum's contest. The underground is the same as the originals. You can invite up to 10 of your friends by creating a room. The room has a code that matches your trainer ID. You can do your trainer ID, do puzzles, underground stuff, secret bases, and ORAS with furniture. You could battle and trade directly in the underground, replacing the YCOM as if it was they got rid of the YCOM. They're utilizing the underground. The resort area is expanded to include a wild area with a forest, 2 small villages, 3 caves, and a beach with some islands you could surf to. The Great Marsh was originally going to be the wild area, but it's actually left intact. Interesting. So I've been theorizing the Great Marsh was going to become a wild area. This is saying it's actually at a different spot, a resort. And it also talks about addressing issues. Amori was not happy with how Sword and Shield turned out. The game suffered from being rushed due to TPCI's Pokemon Company extreme expectations of a full-blown Kanto remake in the middle of the Sword and Shield development, resulting in a ton of problems, cut Pokemon. Decks it will eventually be fixed with DLC, but the base game will include most of the decks. These remakes will be the most important project in Game Freak's history because it decides how the series is treated moving forward. They need to be almost perfect because Nintendo is repeatedly furious at how This is interesting. It says they need to be almost perfect because Nintendo is reportedly furious at how poorly Sword and Shield was received. Overall, these remakes might be receiving the same amount of love Heart Gold, Soul Silver received. I love the sentiment there and the idea that they're gonna pour their, because when people think of Heart Gold and Soul Silver, man, I think everyone has a good vibe for that game. I know I do. That game is incredible. This is saying that Nintendo is mad because of how poorly Sword and Shield was received. But the thing with that is, was Sword and Shield received poorly? Because it ultimately sold like crazy. So how do you determine the metric of a game? Do you determine the metric of the success of a game based on what you read on the internet from people who don't like it? Or do you determine the success of a game based on the sales figures, which in this case did very well? So I don't know. I'm not sitting on a fly on the wall at Nintendo meetings discussing this kind of stuff, but I would think that they were relatively overall pretty happy with the overall success of the game, considering the sales number. So there's a couple other things talking about Dynamax Adventures, things like that. This one talks about the Battle Frontier here as well. They're going to have the original Battle Frontier. They're going to have facilities. Restricted sparring is going to be there. They're going to have kind of a world tournament type of deal going on as well. So a lot of cool things. Sinonian forums are going to focus on Gen 5 and 6 with some 7 and 8 mons sprinkled in with 3 or 4 lines. They weren't planned, but they were suggested by Game Freak employees and started being worked on. First time a decision this big is made by a group of people without much power about how the game turns out. So then it goes on to talk about a bunch of other things that maybe talk about different protagonists, Eternatus being connected to Arceus, talks about another Pokemon 25 collection, which we're not going to really focus on too much here. So some pretty interesting stuff, and I'll put the link to the thread in the description below if you want to read the whole thing, but I just pretty much covered the gist of it. We got some pretty interesting stuff here for potential Diamond and Pearl remakes. So what's the likelihood that this guy, Kaizen, decided to actually leak all this stuff for real on Reddit a year before it's actually going to come out? I don't know, but it's certainly interesting, and I'm certainly excited for the potential of the Diamond Pearl remakes. We're going to the space station in about 5 weeks. We potentially could be getting a release or an announcement in February. That's the big time to be alive, man. We're talking about 3 months away until Pokemon Day. If you guys are celebrating Thanksgiving, I wish you a happy Thanksgiving. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to like it, subscribe to the channel if you guys are new, and I'll see you guys on our next one. Thank you guys for watching. Peace. If you guys enjoyed this video, check out this one right here. Otherwise, this video is pretty awesome too. So check out one of these 2 videos and have yourself a great day.